Alrighty, so in today's video, I want to go over the most overpowered and best abilities within the game in Dokkan Battle right now. Most of these are going to be focusing on the defensive side of things, but there are going to be a few offensive abilities that are mentioned in this video as well. Now, the beauty of the abilities in this game is Beast Gohan has like most of these, so it's not going to be very hard to look at a lot of these characters, right? We can just pull up Beast Gohan and we can talk about a lot of them. So let me know down below, what is your favorite ability in Dokkan right now? I think mine is the domain. I think it's flawed, but I just really like the changing of the background and stuff like that and the unique effects that it has, but I don't think it's the most overpowered in the game. So let's go ahead and get into it. I will explain the ability, what it does, and how I think, and kind of rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, right? So the first one, the Taunt Mechanic. This is what this is what Gogeta Blue as well as Beast Gohan have. We'll pull up Gogeta Blue's first, just to explain what it is. Basically what this is it's going to be redirecting every attack on the turn minus AoEs to this character. So you can see right here, for one turn, the enemy will focus their attacks on this character, and then in Gogeta's case, they will dodge all of the attacks. So what does that mean for Gogeta or for anybody on the rotation? Essentially means that that turn the characters are protected, and Gogeta in this case is going to be taking 0 damage, while Beast Gohan, when you use the active skill, will just be tanking everything and taking all the attacks away. So like those pesky supers are not going to be hitting nearly as hard as they usually would, and that's obviously very good for a lot of the characters in this game. So that is what the Taunt Mechanic does. You just swipe up and it redirects all of the attacks to that character unless it's an AoE. But that is what is going to transition us into the next ability that I want to talk about in this specific video, and that is going to be the giant form that is brought forth with Orange Piccolo. He did not introduce this mechanic, however, he was the character that kind of helped people understand how broken it was, just with how easy he made difficult content with this mechanic in specific. This was kind of the bread and butter of what made this the best character in the game for about over a year. If you want to, a lot of people could argue that this was the best character in the game until about Beast Gohan releasing, and that is why we have him up here. But you can't see it on here, but what a giant form essentially does is it plays turns out and then gives you kind of like extra turns, right? So the effects of what the enemy would potentially be doing on the first turn that you have would go to the giant form, and then everything else after that would be just normal attacks, right? So on that first turn, before you go into giant forms, if there's AoEs and supers, those supers will be launched in the giant form. Therefore, Piccolo will take 0 damage when you get out of it, and then when you go out of the turn, those supers and AoE attacks will no longer be there. So this is a very overpowered mechanic, especially combined with the Taunt Mechanic, which essentially just makes a boss unable to ever really do anything, right? Where it's like, oh, he might potentially launch a super at a unit that is locked in slot 1, right? Well, if you have Beast Gohan in slot 2 and then you swipe up and do that and take the taunt, then he's not going to hit that unit in slot 1. And then let's just say there's like 3 AoEs that Omega Shenron is doing, and then you have somebody like this Orange Piccolo where you can swipe up and take that away, and he's no longer going to be able to do that AoE on the rotation and therefore not do as much damage as he potentially would have done with that AoE. So taunts combined with giant forms, combined with stuff like that, they really kind of add up and make things really difficult for the bosses, and I think these are some of the most overpowered things that you potentially have. Now, sort of going back to Beast Gohan, I'm going to combine these two, although they are different. We have guard as well as damage reduction. So you can see right here, guard activated against all attacks. The guard, let's go ahead and pull that up specifically just so you guys understand like what it does. Okay, so I pulled up a graphic here from Reddit. This user will be credited down below, but I don't really know their name because it's kind of just a bunch of letters, but SGGIFHXFKCHKV. Thank you for putting this out here for me just to kind of quickly explain it. You guys can see here that we have the guard multiplier, and this is what guard is going to be. The guard multiplier is a multiplier of 0.5, which is activated when a unit has type advantage or guard in the passive. So when a unit doesn't have type advantage or guard, the modifier is 1, but when it is guard, therefore it is 0.5. So it is going to cut the damage in half, essentially, right? Like that's what the multiplier is going to do. And with guard, that is going to essentially make the unit type advantage. And then when you combine this with something like damage reduction, this is going to be very overpowered. So you have to keep that in mind. Damage reduction, again, is just a percentage of whatever the damage would be taken on that attack. Excuse me. it would just be like whatever percentage of that for the damage reduction would be what the character takes, right? So damage reduction, very overpowered. Guard, very overpowered. TLDR, just less damage taken from characters with both of these mechanics. And Beast Gohan just happens to have like all of these, right? This is why we call him the best character in the game. He has a taunt, he has damage reduction, he has guard, has ability to increase attack and stuff like that. But these are kind of more unique abilities, so that's what we want to talk about in this video. So guard, I kind of count, but damage reduction is a little bit different. But in this video, I want to talk about like the crazy unique mechanics that we have, right? With like taunts, domains, you know, action breaks, things like that. So moving on, we have Jiren, and why do I have Jiren pulled up? He has a standby. So the standby mechanic can be very, very overpowered when it is used properly, and when we have a character like this, we have unable to attack, but we get defense 350%, which is very nice. And then this character cannot attack, but he also has reduced damage received by 50%, so we're bringing that back up, and then additional 11% per Rainbow Key Sphere obtained, and then he is going to be changing some types key spheres to AGL, so you're never really going to be running low on key with this character. So I think the standby is usually very overpowered when it makes characters defensive, because when you look at a character like the Majin Buu Saga duo from the 8-year anniversary, this is a character that has a very similar type of standby where you just need, I believe, like it's a couple rainbow orbs, I believe, or 2 orbs or something like that. I'll pull it up. They have a standby that makes them a defensive wall compared to what they used to be when they came, or when they're in their base form, where you need to defensively stack for them to be a tank. What you can do is pull them out into the standby right here, and then they will become a defensive wall that's going to help. So it's reduces damage received right here by 8%. Yeah, so we just need key spheres to get where they need to be. They have guards all attacks for 4 turns. And we get extra damage reduction, and then we also get an extra defensive buff. So the standby mechanic, especially when it's defensively focused, is really overpowered because it can make characters kind of stay in the battle a lot longer than they usually would be. And a character, when you could potentially lose, you kind of get bailed out by the standby when you can just go into this and potentially not take any damage. So I think the standby is really overpowered. Let's go ahead and move on to sort of the last mechanic that I want to talk about in this video. And again, this isn't supposed to be like literally every single ability in the game, just the most overpowered ones right now, in my opinion. And that is going to be the domain effect that Ultra Instinct Goku brings to the battlefield. Now, it's kind of hard to explain the domain a little bit. I got to find it in here at Dokkan Info. Sometimes Dokkan Info is a little bit tricky, just with the way that they space things out here. So if we go down here, we have the domain effects of this character when he goes into Mastered Ultra Instinct. Superclass allies and enemies attack, defense, and defense plus 15%. So very good buffs for superclass allies. And then obviously if you're fighting an extreme class ally, this is going to be helpful, or extreme class enemy, excuse me, just because your superclass allies are going to be taking a lot more, or doing a lot more damage. So disabling enemy evasion canceling effects. So this one is especially broken because this is a one-of-a-kind ability with his domain, where if a phase or something like that disables dodge, UI Goku is going to be able to counter that and do a bunch of different things when he's in Mastered Ultra Instinct, and that is going to be very, very helpful for this character, right? So you have to keep that in mind. I think that this is why the domain is so overpowered, just because when you get like a good domain effect like this one, or future Gohans, for example, where like it's just really good, this effect is going to be extremely helpful for you. Now, in my opinion, which one do I think is the best, right? The domain, well, I should also explain it changes the background and like usually gives buffs to enemies and allies, so it can be a bit of a two-edged sword, but I think it's very unique in that sense, right? But kind of looking at these, right, I think right now my favorite and the most overpowered ability to me is the taunt. I think the taunt is just so versatile in the way that it can be used, to the point where you really kind of need to emphasize and prioritize that ability when you can get it, right? So like using it properly, it is going to be very, very, very hard for enemies to sort of work around that, right? Especially when you combine all of these things into one, right? So in theory, like on a superheroes team, you can have Beast Gohan do a taunt on one turn, right? So that's one turn where you're safe. You could have Gogeta do a taunt on another turn. That's another turn where you're safe. You have a second Beast Gohan that can potentially do a taunt. So that is a third turn where you are safe, at least in slot 1 and stuff like that, right? But that's for Goku, UI Goku. But if we move on to here, like, let's go over here, right? This UI Goku, we do the domain, and let's just say a boss cancels dodge. we pop this domain and all of a sudden he can't disable dodge anymore. So then we have something like that, and that's really broken. And then if, let's just say the character does like a triple super on a turn or a double super or has an AoE, we can use Orange Piccolo, and then we can swipe up on that active skill, go into the giant form, and then use that as well. And then the boss is also not going to be able to do anything with supers, with AoEs. Really the only thing that can catch you is like locking and stuff like that and forcing a character off of rotation, right? Like those are sort of the big things that make this team limited in their own sense, but really, like, when you're using all of these broken abilities combined, one thing I also need to mention, I forgot to mention this with Beast Gohan, when you do the unit super attack with Piccolo, you get this action break right here, which is also really overpowered, because you have a character with a scouter, you can potentially hunt out that super and use the unit super attack right here, or a character with an action break to take away that super and get rid of whatever action that may be. So if it's healing, if it's a normal attack, if it's a super attack, you can get rid of it, and it's going to be very good for the rest of the team. So Beast Gohan, yet again, was something else that he has in the Frankenstein monster of mechanics that he has, but there you go, right? I think these are all of the most overpowered abilities in the game, all of like the unique ones and stuff like that. Let me know down below which one your favorite is. Obviously, like crit, seal, stunning, all stuff like that, we're not really going to mention in this video because this isn't supposed to be a breakdown of every ability, but I wanted to just focus on, like, you know, the big boys, right? The new mechanics that are being introduced with the anniversary and stuff like that, and not just like the intangible utility that we've had for years. So let me know down below what you guys think. If you did enjoy today's video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you are new so you don't miss out on any of the Dokkan content that I'm posting. Worldwide download celebration is going to be here before you know it, and we're going to be ready for the storm that brings. Thank you again for that to the Reddit user for the post to explain guard, and I'll see you all in the next one.